Chapter 67:15. When Ziren saw Xiaohei and Xiaobai, their reactions were not much better than Gong Jun's. Shangguan Yingying looked at the two cute children in surprise and said with a smile, "Whose children are these? They're so cute. Let Auntie hug them." Xiaohei was carried up by Shangguan Yingying, and she immediately looked like she had nothing to live for. Thinking back to the scene of Bai Shi and Xiao Xuanzi transforming into their human forms, and then thinking about herself, a random person wanted to hug her and pinch her face. The difference was too great. "Hong Zhuang, we haven't seen each other in a while. Where did you find such cute dolls?" Shangguan Yingying was overflowing with love. "I don't usually like children, but these two children are just too cute. It makes me like them at first glance. I don't know why. I actually find them a little familiar." Hearing Shangguan Yingying's words, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but chuckle. "It's right that you find them familiar. What do you mean?" "They are Xiaohei and Xiaobai." Bailey Hongzhuang did not tease Shangguan Yingying. She smiled and recounted the entire story. When Ziren's face was also filled with astonishment. "It can't be? Half an illusory form pearl actually has such an effect. This matter is also beyond our expectations. Other than these two buffoons, I'm afraid no one else would have thought of doing this." Bewitching shook his head and chuckled. "This is new, but I think it's pretty good this way. What two cute dolls. It's even more interesting when they go out." Ziren smiled and teased the two little fellows. Gong Jun nodded repeatedly, clearly in agreement. Xiaohei and Xiaobai could no longer stand these fellows. Their previous wise and mighty image would probably never be found again. "I heard that Bai Luchuan was confined. I wonder if this is true." Ziren restrained his joking expression. "I originally wanted to teach this fellow a lesson, but this fellow doesn't go out. It's harder for us to deal with him. A mere confinement was obviously too easy for him. This guy was so hateful and narrow-minded. Confinement had almost no effect on him. Once he came out, he would definitely cause trouble for them again. Rather than that, the best way was to take the initiative to attack. However, City Lord Manor's punishment was a form of protection for Bai Luchuan. After all, they couldn't rush in and attack Bai Luchuan, right? I also heard that he was confined, and his cultivation resources were also confiscated. This is what Miss Yang and the others told me. City Lord is completely disappointed in Bai Luchuan. If it wasn't for the blood relationship, I'm afraid he wouldn't be willing to bother with him," Gong Jun said slowly. "Reducing his power is not bad." Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. "What about Yin Xiaoman? This woman was the biggest reason for all the conflicts. He couldn't let her go just like that." "I heard that Yin Xiaoman has always been living in Bai Luchuan's manor. I'm not sure what the situation is like now." Gong Jun frowned. He had nearly forgotten about this woman. These are troubled times. Yin Xiaoman should know that she definitely won't dare to show her face recently. "However, you should be more careful," Bewitching said. "Boss, don't worry. Leave this matter to me. I definitely won't let her have an easy time. Bai Luchuan can't care about her now. I'll find an opportunity to take action." Chapter 67:16. Speaking of which, it's strange that Guan Hongtian hasn't done anything other than setting a trap. This isn't in line with his character. Ziren raised his eyebrows slightly with a trace of doubt. In his opinion, Guan Hongtian was a vengeful person. He cared so much about Guan Yi, so how could he not do anything? "That's right. We were worried that Wanbao Pavilion would make a move on us. I didn't expect them to be so quiet. It's as if nothing happened." Shangguan Yingying was also a little surprised. Gong Jun smiled mysteriously. "Isn't it because Madame saved Bai Qingli? If not for that, Guan Hongtian would have made a move. It's only because we have a close relationship with the City Lord's mansion that he hasn't done anything yet. I can guarantee that as soon as we leave Shiyun City, he will immediately come back to cause trouble." As soon as he said this, everyone looked at each other and understood. It seems that we still can't let down our guard. We have to pay attention to these problems. Everyone ate while drinking and chatting. It was a very enjoyable time. "Hong Zhuang, I heard that you've been studying young Master Yang's condition. Have you made any progress recently?" Shangguan Yingying was sitting next to Bailey Hongzhuang, and after pouring a glass of plum wine for her, she asked aloud. I've made some progress. I didn't expect there to be something else in the poison that Granny mentioned to me before. I'm really starting to suspect that the poison in young Master Yang's body was refined by Granny Hua. If that was the case, it would be too much of a coincidence. Young Lingfeng's luck could be said to be heaven-defying. The world is big and there are all kinds of strange things. Although the possibility of this is not high, it's not impossible. Shen Guanying smiled. She understood Hong Zhuang's medical skills. For a poison to be studied by Hong Zhuang for so long, it was enough to prove how powerful the poison maker was. Thinking about it, other than Granny Hua, no one else could do it. Even so, I still feel that this poison is more insidious than the one Granny refined. It doesn't match Granny's personality. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. This was what she didn't understand the most. If she wasn't wrong, this poison was supposed to torture people to death. If it wasn't for her grandmother's antidote, Yang Lingfeng would have died long ago. Although the poison refined by her mother-in-law was quite vicious, compared to this poison, it was a little more pleasurable. Vaguely, she felt that something was wrong. She was afraid that she would have to ask Apothecary Wei about this. Perhaps she would be able to learn something. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was thinking seriously, Shen Guanying did not refute. Hongzhuang had the best relationship with her mother-in-law, so she knew her mother-in-law's style best. If she felt that there was something wrong, then there must be something wrong. There are so many pharmacists in the entire immortal region. Perhaps someone else poisoned her. Or perhaps it has something to do with Granny. Bewitching comforted. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She also felt that the possibility of this happening was very high. After a few more days, Bailey Hongzhuang finally figured out a way to detoxify the poison. Immediately, she went to the city lord's mansion with Bewitching. Yang Han and the others were simply waiting day and night. They hoped that Apothecary Wei would come out of seclusion as soon as possible. They also hoped that Bailey Hongzhuang would come sooner. Chapter 67-17. Thankfully, Yang Han and Bai Ziyuan were familiar with each other and did not feel the slightest bit of discomfort in the governor's estate. As a result, the wait was not too long. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived, Yang Han and Bai Ziyuan were in the middle of a game of chess. The two of them enjoyed playing chess whenever they got together. When they suddenly heard the news of Bailey Hongzhuang's arrival, the two of them ignored the game on the chessboard and hurried over. However, they had only taken a few steps into the governor's estate when Bailey Hongzhuang saw Bai Qingli and the others. She immediately smiled. "Miss Bailey, you finally come." Bai Qingli was pleasantly surprised. "While you were in closed-door cultivation, these two have been constantly asking when you would reappear. It's made me feel very helpless." "It's not as exaggerated as you make it sound," Yang Qinxue hurriedly interjected. There was even some embarrassment on her face. "Miss Bailey, don't listen to his nonsense. If you all treat me as a friend, then please call me Hong Zhuang." Hearing this, the three of them were delighted. "Of course, that's great. Don't be too distant when you call us that. Come to think of it, we've known each other for quite some time." Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. "All right. Hong Zhuang, have you come today because there's been some progress in Lingfeng's illness?" Yang Qinshua's face was filled with concern. She could not wait to know the results, but was worried that there was no cure. "Indeed, I've made some progress." As soon as he said this, the eyes of the three lit up. Even young Lingfeng's face was filled with excitement. Over the past 5 years, he had seen so many pharmacists that he had almost given up hope. He never thought that hope would appear before him at this moment. It was simply too delightful. "I've come this time with the antidote that I've concocted. However, we'll only know after Lingfeng has tried it." Although Bailey Hongzhuang's words were not too certain, there was a hint of confidence in her tone. She had already tested it with young Lingfeng's blood. The antidote she had concocted was able to neutralize the poison. "You've already concocted the antidote?" Yang Qinxue found it hard to believe. "Medicine Master Wei has been cooped up in his room all this time. We know how difficult it is to detoxify him. This poison is indeed not easy to detoxify. It's just that I have some understanding of the detoxification pill that Lingfeng took, so it's easier for me to study it." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Apothecary Wei had been immersed in the art of healing for many years, so there was no need to mention his medical skills. She had spent so much time researching the antidote formula, so it was no surprise that Apothecary Wei was unable to figure it out. When Yang Han and Bai Ziyuan arrived and heard Bailey Hongshuang's words, they secretly nodded their heads. This young lady was indeed different from other young people, who were arrogant and complacent. She was humble and courteous, which made people satisfied. City Lord Bai, City Lord Yang. Bailey Hongshuang greeted them with a bow. Miss Bailey, there's no need to be so polite. May I know if you've come to understand Lingfeng's situation? Bai Ziyuan asked with a smile. Bailey Hongshuang nodded slightly. I've already concocted the antidote. If you trust me, let Lingfeng take it, and we'll know the results. Hearing this, without waiting for Yang Han and the others to speak, Yang Lingfeng took the lead and said, I trust you. Chapter 67:18. Since Lingfeng trusts you so much, we naturally trust you as well. Yang Han smiled. He wasn't worried that Bailey Hongshuang would harm them, because there was no need to. Bailey Hongshuang smiled, and handed the antidote to Yang Lingfeng. Here's the antidote, but according to my judgment, you won't feel much better after taking it. The remaining poison has been in your body for too long. If we want to force it out completely, we'll have to use some ruthless methods. That's why I've given you a heavier dose this time. This was the result of her careful consideration. The poison that Bailey Hongshuang had given him wasn't simple to begin with. Furthermore, it had been in his body for so many years that it had almost become one with him. If they wanted to force the poison out completely, they'd have to use some ruthless methods. If they couldn't do it in one go, it'd be even more troublesome in the future. Fortunately, Yang Lingfeng was young and healthy. He should be able to handle it. Bewitching also spoke up. Once the poison is completely removed, you might fall into a coma. However, as long as you take good care of yourself, you'll make a full recovery in a few days. Everyone was surprised to hear that taking the antidote would result in such a serious condition. The antidote pills they usually took wouldn't cause such a situation. The three kingdoms of Huan Yu Yang Lingfeng didn't hesitate at all. I understand. I'll just fall into a coma. It's fine as long as I don't die. Everyone couldn't help but chuckle. It was clearly a serious matter, but when he put it that way, it didn't seem like a big deal. At this moment, Medicine Master Wei, who had been in seclusion all this time, rushed over. Little friend Bailey, you've developed the antidote so quickly? Medicine Master Wei's hoarse voice was tinged with surprise as he hurriedly asked. As soon as Bailey Hongshuang turned her head, she saw Medicine Master Wei, whom she hadn't seen for a few days. At the moment, his clothes were covered with all kinds of medicinal herbs, and his beard was all over his mouth. His appearance was indescribably messy, and he looked completely different from when they first met. With this appearance, it was obvious that he'd been working tirelessly on his research. If she hadn't come here today, Medicine Master Wei wouldn't have been able to maintain this appearance for long. Bailey Hongshuang told Apothecary Wei the results of her research. As for the antidote, Apothecary Wei couldn't tell if it was right or wrong. After all, he hadn't researched this area yet. Jizuan Demonic Concubine, Ghost Emperor, I refuse to accept this. However, after hearing about the effects of the antidote, he nodded and said, it's true that this will happen after removing the residual poison for many years. Ling Feng is young and strong, so it shouldn't be a problem. If everyone was still a little worried at first, they were no longer worried after hearing this. If that's the case, let's give it a try, Yang Qinxue said. Let's go to Ling Feng's residence. Bai Ziyuan immediately made a decision. If Ling Feng is really unconscious, you can take a look. After arriving at Yang Lingfeng's residence, he consumed the antidote. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the man. They didn't know what would happen. When he first consumed the antidote, Yang Lingfeng didn't feel anything strange. However, as time passed, he gradually felt a pain in his body. The pain intensified as time passed, and his face became paler and paler. Large beads of sweat seeped out of his forehead. He supported himself with his palm on the table, trying his best not to fall. Chapter 67:19. Everyone had also noticed Yang Lingfeng's situation, and their faces were filled with concern. Yang Lingfeng shook his head weakly. His gaze was as determined as ever. "Don't worry, I'm fine." However, this voice was undoubtedly much weaker than before. Bailey Hongzhuang held Yang Lingfeng's hand and checked his pulse. She was sure that the antidote she had developed would not have any problems. But the process was indeed very difficult to endure. Although his pulse feels weak, it has not affected his body. Yang Han looked nervous. He was counting on Yang Lingfeng to inherit the family business, so he could not allow anything to happen to him. However, in this situation, there was no other way but to trust Bailey Hongzhuang. The pain was getting more and more intense. Yang Lingfeng had curled up into a ball and sat on the ground. He tried his best to endure it, but did not make any sound. His face was getting paler and paler, and Bailey Hongzhuang was carefully paying attention to his changes. She was thinking that the time should be up. Yang Qinxue could not help but feel anxious when she saw this. She was worried that Bailey Hongzhuang had made a mistake. Otherwise, how could the antidote have ended up in this state? Yang Lingfeng had always had strong willpower. This was the first time she had seen him in such pain. Fantasy Nirvana dust. Just then, Yang Lingfeng suddenly opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of black blood. Then he fainted. The black blood dripped onto the ground, and a sizzling sound was heard. The blood was mixed with some black blood clots, and the grass on the ground quickly lost its vitality. Everyone's expression changed when they saw this. Just by looking at the condition of the grass, they knew how terrifying the poison was. However, this poison had been in Yang Lingfeng's body for so many years and no one knew about it. Just the thought of it was terrifying. Yang Han and the others quickly helped Yang Lingfeng up and asked, "What should we do now?" Bailey Hongzhuang saw that after Yang Lingfeng spat out the black blood, the blood in his mouth had turned bright red. She checked his pulse again and took out a pill and placed it in Yang Lingfeng's mouth. "Don't worry, he's fine. He's just too weak and needs to rest. After 2 hours he should wake up." Hearing this, everyone relaxed. Bai Qingli and Yang Qinxue escorted Yang Lingfeng into the house. Yang Han could not help but stop by He Shui's side. His face was as gloomy as water. "Princess Shirgu, after so many years, no one has discovered that Ling Feng has been poisoned. If this poison continues to exist in his body, the consequences will be unimaginable once it takes effect in the future." Bai Ziyuan couldn't help but speak out. This situation was truly frightening. Yang Han's face was ashen, but he couldn't help but rejoice in his heart. "Fortunately, I was able to meet Lady Bailey this time. Otherwise, I don't know when Ling Feng's condition would be discovered." He stood up and bowed deeply to Bailey Hongzhuang. "Miss Bailey, thank you for saving my life." Bailey Hongzhuang hurriedly helped Yang Han up. "City Lord Yang, you can't do that. You're our family's savior. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't dare to imagine what would have happened." Yang Han knew very well that if he hadn't met Bailey Hongzhuang, even if someone had discovered the poison, it would have been very difficult to cure it. "Haven't you seen how Medicine Master Wei has been tormenting himself for so many days without any clues?" Chapter 67:20. What kind of poison is in Ling Feng's body? Even after taking Granny Hua's antidote pill, he still couldn't cure it. Bai Ziyuan fell into deep thought. They were very clear about Granny Hua's reputation. Logically speaking, Granny Hua's antidote pill should be able to cure all poisons. Could it be a poison made by Granny Hua herself? How could there be such a coincidence? Medicine Master Wei couldn't help but say, "As far as I know, Granny Hua's antidote pills can't cure all poisons that she made." When Bailey Hongzhuang heard everyone mention this aspect, she immediately became interested. "According to my judgment, this poison shouldn't be made by Granny Hua. I would like to ask everyone, is there anyone in the immortal domain whose medical and poison skills are on par with Granny Hua's?" Everyone fell into deep thought when they heard this, and their expressions became very complicated. Noticing everyone's change in expression, Bailey Hongzhuang instinctively realized that there must be something going on. "Granny Hua once had a disciple," Medicine Master Wei said slowly. "If it's not Granny Hua, then it's very likely to be her." Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly surprised. Granny Hua's disciple? Bewitching's expression also changed after hearing this. They didn't hear Granny Hua mention this before. However, Bailey Hongzhuang still had some vague associations in her mind. She remembered that Granny Hua would sometimes reveal a regretful and angry expression. It was just that she didn't talk about it in depth. That's right. Granny Hua did have a disciple called Hualuo. Bai Ziyuan nodded. This Hualuo's medical skills are very outstanding. She has always followed behind Granny Hua. This Hualuo is different from Granny Hua. Although Granny Hua's medical and poison skills are very good, she is a lone wolf and is very righteous. However, for some reason, this Hualuo is very sinister. Her methods are ruthless and her hands are stained with countless amounts of blood. It was because of this that Granny Hua once reprimanded Hualuo. However, Hualuo didn't listen to her, and was even extremely disrespectful to Granny Hua. Some people said that a huge battle broke out between them. At that time, this news also shocked the world. Since then, no one has seen Granny Hua again. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching couldn't help but look at each other, their hearts filled with shock. Originally, they thought that there must be a reason why Granny Hua chose to live in the abandoned immortal forest. They never thought that something like this would happen. Hualuo's actions were simply deceiving her master and destroying her ancestors. Given her mother-in-law's personality, she would definitely be extremely angry. Bailey Hongzhuang had been with Granny Hua for a long time. She knew that Granny Hua had her own bottom line. She knew what she could do and what she could not do. However, he did not expect that he would have such a disciple. He must be heartbroken. What happened to Hualuo? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. From then on, Granny Hua vanished without a trace, and Hualuo joined a sect in the immortal region. Similarly, she rarely appeared before the eyes of the world. As for which sect it is, I have forgotten. However, it caused such a huge commotion at that time. As long as we go to the immortal region and ask around, we should know. Bai Ziyuan was somewhat helpless. After all, the immortal region is still quite far away from us. Chapter 67:21. Although there were many people in the immortal region who were highly skilled in the art of medicine and poison, this person's poison techniques came from the same source as Granny Hua's. Naturally, Hualuo was most likely the culprit. However, the culprit must have obtained Hualuo's poison by chance. The probability of such a coincidence happening was really small. Perhaps this was also a kind of fate. Little friend Bailey, I didn't expect you to be so familiar with Granny Hua's antidote. Medicine Master Wei sighed. I've studied it for a long time without any results. This speed is truly shameful. He was much older than Bailey Hongzhuang. Although he knew that Bailey Hongzhuang could be considered a genius in this area, he felt that the gap between them wasn't that big. However, this matter clearly showed the gap between them. Her speed was much faster than his. Although he had tried many methods during his seclusion, he had only scratched the surface. Seeing Wei Shang's sad sigh, Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it. In the end, she didn't reveal her identity as Granny Hua's disciple. This time, they had to rely on their own strength to train. If they used their master's name, it would naturally be meaningless. Notes from the Exalted Immortal. Their masters had warned them about this. Moreover, Hualuo's identity wasn't simple, and she had a grudge with Granny Hua. If they used this name, they would inevitably be noticed by Hualuo. When that time came, it would be very troublesome. At the very least, their current strength was clearly inferior to Hualuo's by a large margin. Medicine Master Wei, I just happen to have some research in this area. In my area of expertise, you're naturally at a disadvantage. Wei Shang, who was originally depressed, smiled when he heard Bailey Hongzhuang's words of consolation. Forget it. At my age, I actually need to be consoled by little friend Bailey. Speaking of which, it's really embarrassing. In the Yangtze River, each new generation excels the previous one. The student surpasses the master. If young people can have such results, everyone will be better in the future. Everyone burst into laughter when they heard that. Wei Shang was a broad-minded person. Even if he had a moment of self-doubt, he was able to quickly adjust. The arrival of the queen. The cold-hearted prince seduces a concubine when Bai Ziyuan and the others saw this scene. They secretly laughed in their hearts. This was the first time they had seen someone who could defeat Apothecary Wei to such an extent, especially when this girl was so young. He's neither arrogant nor rash, neither servile nor overbearing. He'll definitely be someone in the future. Yang Han's eyes had a deeper meaning, whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang or Di Beichen, who had been quiet all this time. These two little guys were obviously not ordinary people. Sooner or later, they would make a name for themselves. After being the city lord for so many years, he was still very confident in his eyesight. Bai Ziyuan nodded slightly. He could also see that there were many capable people in the younger generation, but their personality often accounted for a large part of their success. Bai Liuchuan's talent in cultivation wasn't weak either, but compared to the two of them, the difference was obvious. Looking at Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, it was also very good for them to become friends with Bailey Hongzhuang and the others as soon as possible. Not to mention other things, just Bailey Hongzhuang's skill in medicine and poison had endless uses. No one could guarantee that they wouldn't be troubled by this problem in the future. Chapter 67-22. Everyone had always thought that it was Yang Lingfeng's mental illness, but who would have thought that it was actually because of this? If we had met Hongzhuang a few years earlier, Lingfeng wouldn't have had to suffer such a blow, Yang Qinxue joked. In the past, this matter had always been a pain in Lingfeng's heart, so none of them dared to mention it, fearing that it would make Lingfeng feel inferior. But now it was all better. It was only because he was poisoned, and had nothing to do with himself. Hongzhuang, thank you, Yang Lingfeng said with a serious expression. This problem had troubled him for so many years, and even his personality had become more and more eccentric. Fortunately, he had met her. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and waved her hand. No need to be so polite. I'm also happy that you've recovered. Miss Bailey, you've helped us greatly this time. I've already said before that no matter what the reward is, as long as it's something the city lord's mansion has, we will definitely not refuse. Yang Han's expression was serious. This matter had undoubtedly solved a big problem for them, so no matter what it was, they would not go overboard. Everyone smiled, and Yang Qinxue even said, Hongzhuang, no need to be polite, just say it. City Lord Yang, I want to ask where you got the illusion form bead? Do you know where else to find it? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Hearing this question, Yang Han was also a little surprised. Didn't you just get the illusion form bead a few days ago? To tell you the truth, Beichen and I've contracted beasts are limited by some problems, and are unable to transform into human form. One illusion form bead can only solve one of the problems. There is still one that cannot be solved. Hearing this, everyone understood, and couldn't help but think of the two little cuties beside Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang on the night of the banquet. The black and white nimble little dumplings left a deep impression on everyone. You husband and wife are really interesting. Even your contracted beasts are a pair. Yang Qinxue smiled, then turned to look at Yang Han. Father, where did you get the illusion form bead? That illusory form bead was obtained from a secret realm. However, I did not enter that secret realm. It was just a gift from someone else. Yang Han said. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. With Mayor Yang Han's status, there were naturally many people who gave him gifts. The illusory form bead was relatively precious, but it was undoubtedly excellent as a gift. The return of the queen. The daughter of a rich family is reborn. Is it possible for the illusory bead to appear in the secret realm? Di Beichen asked. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's current forms were indeed quite good, but they were still missing an illusory form pearl. If they could find it, it would undoubtedly be the best. I have never asked this question. When I return, I will help you ask around. If he still has more illusion form beads, I will directly buy them, Yang Han said with a smile. Many thanks, City Lord Yang. Di Beichen cupped his hands. Yang Han waved his hand. This is just a small matter. You have helped me so much, but this small matter is unable to repay you. City Lord Yang does not need to be so polite. We are already friends with young Master Yang, so it is naturally not worth mentioning. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm. In her heart, friends were different from ordinary people. Healing a friend was what she should do, so why would she need to think about this? Chapter 67-23. Everyone had always thought that it was Yang Lingfeng's mental illness, but who would have thought that it was actually because of this? If we had met Hong Zhuang a few years earlier, Lingfeng wouldn't have had to suffer such a blow, Yang Qinxue joked. In the past, this matter had always been a pain in Lingfeng's heart, so none of them dared to mention it, fearing that it would make Lingfeng feel inferior. But now it was all better. It was only because he was poisoned, and it had nothing to do with him. Hong Zhuang, thank you, Yang Lingfeng said with a serious expression. This problem had troubled him for so many years, and even his personality had become more and more eccentric. Fortunately, he had met her. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled and waved her hand. No need to be so polite. I am also happy that you have recovered. Miss Bailey, you have helped us greatly this time. I have already said before that no matter what the reward is, as long as it is something that the City Lord's mansion has, we will definitely not refuse. Yang Han's expression was serious. This matter had undoubtedly solved a big problem for them, so no matter what it was, they would not go overboard. Everyone smiled, and Yang Qinxue said, Hong Zhuang, you don't have to be so polite, just say it. City Lord Yang, I want to ask where you obtained the illusion form bead? Do you know where to find it? Bailey Hong Zhuang asked. Hearing this question, Yang Han was a little surprised. Didn't you just get the illusion form bead a few days ago? To tell you the truth, Bewitching and I've contracted beasts are limited by some problems, and are unable to take human form. One illusion form bead can only solve one of the problems. There is still one that cannot be solved. Hearing this, everyone understood, and they couldn't help but think of the two little cuties beside Bewitching and Bailey Hong Zhuang on the night of the banquet. The black and white nimble little dumplings left a deep impression on everyone. You husband and wife are really interesting. Even your contracted beasts are a pair. Yang Qinxue smiled, then turned to look at Yang Han. Father, where did you get the illusion form bead? That illusory form bead was obtained from a secret realm. However, I did not enter that secret realm. It was just a gift from someone else. Yang Han said. Bailey Hong Zhuang finally understood. With Mayor Yang Han's status, there were naturally many people who gave him gifts. The illusory form bead was relatively precious, but it was undoubtedly excellent as a gift. Is it possible for the illusory bead to appear in the secret realm? Bewitching asked. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's current forms were indeed quite good, but they were still missing an illusory form pearl. If they could find it, it would undoubtedly be the best. I have never asked this question before. When I return, I will help you ask around. If he still has more illusory form beads, I will directly buy them, Yang Han said with a smile. Many thanks, City Lord Yang. Bewitching cupped his hands. Yang Han waved his hand. This is just a small matter. You have helped me so much, but this small matter is unable to repay you. City Lord Yang does not need to be so polite. We are already friends with young Master Yang, so it is naturally not worth mentioning. Bailey Hong Zhuang's expression was calm. In her heart, friends were different from ordinary people. Healing a friend was what she should do, so why would she need to think about this? Chapter 67-24. Yang Han chuckled. You've seen it too. If I don't thank you properly, I'm afraid my daughter will despise me. Yang Han took out a cosmos pouch and handed it to Bailey Hong Zhuang. Here are the cultivation resources you youngsters need. I can see that your talents are extraordinary. I'm sure you'll be able to break through to the elementary immortal stage. These cultivation resources will help you break through. Apart from that, this is the City Lord's Estates medallion. If you come to Qingyang City in the future, this will be convenient for you too. Looking at the token Yang Han handed over, Bailey Hong Zhuang hesitated for a moment before accepting it. Many thanks, Lord Yang. She understood the value of the medallion. It was even more precious than the cultivation resources. Once they arrived at Qingyang City, the effects of the medallion could be imagined. Although they didn't know what kind of secret realm they had gone to, if there was hope, they would very likely take a look. Naturally, the medallion would come in handy. Bai Ziyuan was rather surprised when he saw Yang Han give the medallion to Bailey Hong Zhuang. However, he understood the value of the two of them, so it wasn't excessive. Yang Qinxue finally showed a satisfied expression. That's more like it. If the city lord was too stingy, no one would be able to stand it. Bailey Hongzhuang took her leave after writing down the prescription. Yang Lingfeng would probably need at least 3 days to recover from his weakened state. Yang Han also said that he would clarify the situation as soon as possible and tell them the news. So they only needed to wait patiently. After returning to their residence, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the cultivation resources Yang Han had given them. She was rather surprised. City Lord Yang is really generous. He actually gave us so many things. These cultivation resources were even more abundant than the rewards they had received from the monster slaughter competition. Bewitching smiled faintly. Yang Lingfeng is City Lord Yang's only son. You saved his life, so City Lord Yang is naturally very grateful. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Even if it were her, there was nothing more important than the life of a family member. With these cultivation resources, I think we can go into seclusion for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and smiled faintly. The Brilliant Sun Realm was a process of accumulation. It required the cultivator to constantly accumulate spirit power, until one day they had a clear idea of what was going on. Only then would there be a possibility of a breakthrough. According to Gong Jun, many cultivators have been stuck in this realm for decades, or even centuries. Although the people in the immortal realm of chaos looked young, they were actually hundreds of years old. It was only because they had cultivated to this level that their lifespans were much longer. That was why it was hard to tell. It was said that after breaking through to the elementary immortal stage, one would look even younger. At their age, they were definitely very young in the serene Cloud City. Fortunately, at this point in time, no one would ask each other's age. Cultivation was the most important thing. Lifespan would increase as one's strength increased, so it was meaningless to ask. Because of that, glorious Sun Realm cultivators would frequently enter secluded cultivation. Once they entered secluded cultivation, they would stay in secluded cultivation for a long time. Everyone was hoping to break through to the elementary celestial realm one day. That was a completely different realm. Once one broke through, one could be called an immortal. Chapter 67-25. Bewitching also knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had always been interested in this field, but because she had to detoxify Yang Lingfeng, she spent all her time on it. Now that this problem had been solved, she naturally had time to study the things she was interested in. These demon crystals are useless to everyone, so they are all here for you to study. Bewitching placed the Qianquan pouch beside Bailey Hongzhuang, his handsome face rippling with a faint smile. Thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the Qianquan pouch. The number of demon crystals inside was very plentiful. Although there were quite a few monsters in Shiyun City, the price of demon crystals wasn't cheap because everyone knew that it had a good effect for alchemists, so they just sat there and raised the price. Wife, you can refine pills in the room. I heard from Gong Jun that there is an exchange of array masters in the city today. I plan to go take a look. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Okay. Since she had learned this craft, she naturally needed to interact with others. Bewitching was not only good at array techniques, but he was also good at talisman techniques. Presumably, she had also interacted with some alchemists, but Bewitching had never interacted with anyone before. It was indeed time for her to go out and interact with others. Then you should pay attention. It's just a small exchange. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Now that they had some status in Shiyun City, the possibility of trouble was not high. Moreover, Gong Jun was there. This guy had always been tactful in dealing with people, so naturally there was no need to worry. Xiao He and Xiao Bai were also interested in the exchange of array masters, so they followed Bewitching to have some fun. Bailey Hongzhuang began to study the method of refining demon crystals. Although there were already people who had successfully used this method to increase the efficacy of pills, it was not always successful. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't try it out rashly. Instead, she followed Apothecary Wei's instructions to refine a successful pill. Recovery pill. This was a basic pill formula that cultivators often used. Although it was relatively simple to refine, It had always been highly recommended because of its high demand. It was said that before this, someone had successfully added the demon crystal into the vitality recovery pill, and the effect of the pill refined was much better than usual. Bailey Hongzhuang just so happened to have a lot of medicinal ingredients for the vitality recovery pill in her hands, so she began to act. How to refine a demon crystal was undoubtedly the most difficult problem for an alchemist. The outer layer of the crystal-like shell gradually began to melt under the heat of the alchemy fire, and the bright red liquid inside flowed out. Bailey Hongzhuang controlled the alchemy fire and carefully sensed the situation in the alchemy furnace with her spiritual power. Sure enough, just as everyone had said, there was a trace of dark force and murderous qi in the demon crystal. If she wanted to use this thing in medicine, she must eliminate these two forces. Only by turning them into the purest force could she safely refine the pill. Bailey Hongzhuang tried to refine the dark force and murderous qi, but found that it was not an easy task. These two forces seemed to be dependent on each other, and were difficult to separate. Although there was a tendency to gradually decrease with the refining of the alchemy fire, the volume of the liquid in the demon crystal was also constantly decreasing. Chapter 67-26. Almost immediately, Bailey Hongzhuang understood that this would not work. Once she did this, there would be too little essence left. It would be a complete waste. After spending so much effort, if there was only so little left in the end, it would not be worth it. No wonder so many pharmacists were unable to successfully develop it. So this is the biggest difficulty. Bailey Hongzhuang understood. It seemed that she had to think of another way. The dark energy in her body gradually appeared. Bailey Hongzhuang tried to directly absorb the dark energy in the demon crystal. The result was out of her expectations. This was because the dark energy was easily absorbed. Not only that, she found that this dark energy was especially pure. It was purer than the energy that she usually absorbed. It was really interesting. I did not expect the dark energy in the demon crystal to be so pure and condensed. Absorbing it is actually very beneficial. Although the demon crystal was still filled with a murderous aura, after the dark energy disappeared, it seemed to have lost its support. Refining it was much easier than before. Bailey Hongzhuang was pleasantly surprised. She did not expect that the problem that everyone thought to be so difficult to solve would be solved so easily. Thinking about it, it would be easier for any pharmacist with the dark attribute to refine the demon crystal. However, it would be much more difficult for pharmacists with other attributes to refine it. After she removed all the impurities in the demon crystal, the bright red liquid looked like a crystal-clear ruby. It was very beautiful. She took out the essence and began to refine the pill. According to pharmacist's way, the demon crystal was to be added at the last step of refining the pill. However, she had to pay attention to the timing. Because everyone did not have much experience on this point, they had to rely on trial and error. Therefore, Bailey Hongzhuang could only try it herself. Whether it was the timing or the amount, she had to slowly figure it out. Sheila, Bailey Hongzhuang, had only just put the demon crystal in for a moment. The pill was directly destroyed and could no longer be condensed. Seeing this, she did not care. She did not expect to succeed immediately. She immediately removed the impurities in the pill furnace and began refining again. Sheila, failure after failure. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. She began to record the amount and time of the changes in the demon crystal essence. In the beginning, other than failure, there was almost no change. However, as time went by, she gradually discovered some clues. The time of failure would be different, and the dregs of the failed pills would also be different. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. She understood that this was a research that required ample time. Fortunately, she still had time now, so there was no need to rush. Once she succeeded, the effects of the pills in the future would be even more effective. That would really be the best thing that could happen. At that time, she could tell Granny Hua about her new results. Time flew by quickly as they focused on refining pills. Bailey Hongzhuang had just recorded the results of the previous batch of pills, and was about to continue refining when she saw Xiao He walking back. This little baby was originally very cute, but now that he was angry, he actually looked very naive. Chapter 67-27. Bailey Hongzhuang carried Xiaohei in her arms. Her chubby little face was filled with resentment. She reached out and poked Xiaohei in a fit of pique and asked, "What happened?" "Master." Xiaohei tugged at the woman's hand coquettishly. That exchange between the array masters just now was simply too infuriating. Bailey Hongzhuang furrowed her brows. She had thought that this was just a simple exchange, and that there shouldn't be any problems. However, from the looks of it, this exchange seemed to have caused a disturbance as well. Ever since the male master had left, there was an extremely young-looking fellow in there, who had acted as if nothing was wrong with his eyes or his nose. His words were always directed at him. I don't know who this fellow is either. Everyone else was also siding with this fellow. They were so flattering that it was as if they wished that they could follow behind him and carry his shoes. However, the male master was able to keep his cool and wasn't angry at all. However, when I saw that man's arrogant and complacent look, I couldn't stand it any longer. Then what happened after that? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression turned cold. She had never heard of the array masters in the city before. However, since this person had been able to garner so much flattery from so many array masters, he must either have an extraordinary status, or his array skills were exceptional. Since he looked so young, and yet he was able to garner so much respect from so many people, there must be a reason for that. I don't know what happened after that either. However, the atmosphere at the time was simply too infuriating. Xiao Bai and I wanted to throw a tantrum, but the male master held us back. After that we returned home. Xiaohei looked gloomy. Actually, I wanted to continue staying there. I don't know if that fellow would do something even more outrageous. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was a little unhappy, but she was not worried. Since Bewitching was willing to continue staying there, he must have his reasons. Regardless of the other party's identity, since this was Xi'an City, there was no need to worry about his safety for now. We will know when Bewitching returns. Bailey Hongzhuang patted Xiaohei's head and said, "You have to change your impatient personality. Sometimes, you have to be patient so that you won't be taken advantage of." "Master, that guy was too much." He spoke as if the male master didn't know anything about formations. Even Gong Jun was ridiculed. If that's the case, I'm afraid that this person is truly capable. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. If the other party only had a noble status, then after knowing the influence of Bewitching's array stone in Xi'an City, it was impossible for him to speak so arrogantly. Therefore, to be able to do this under such circumstances, it proved that this person was most likely a very powerful array master. That's not the real deal. Little Black curled his lips. Look at his arrogant face. It's inevitable for cultivators from other professions to be a little arrogant. This person has always been flattered by others. It's normal for him to have such a temper. Bailey Hongzhuang raised the corners of her lips. I think. You must have heard that Bewitching's array stone is selling extremely well, and feels that it has affected his prestige. That's why he's deliberately targeting him. It was impossible for someone to target someone for no reason. Every seemingly inexplicable situation had a reason behind it. Only mediocre people are not envied. Chapter 67-28. Now that she thought about it carefully, what her master had said was true. If the male master was not capable, he would be ignored at such an event. However, this person had been picking on her ever since the male master had appeared. The problem was very clear. "Master, now that you've said that, I'm not so angry anymore." Xiaohei smiled and played with her little braids. The gloominess on her face had disappeared. "Oh you," Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head helplessly. "Don't be so impatient when you encounter such things. We've encountered many things along the way, so we've gradually calmed down." "Oh," Xiaohei dragged her words. Actually, she understood this point as well. However, she had always been a person who abhorred evil. After so many years, it had been deeply ingrained in her, and it was very difficult for her to change. She already had an adorable little face. Now that she had an aggrieved look on her face, Anyone who looked at her would feel sorry for her. Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but soften her tone when she spoke. Forget it, forget it. Who asked you to be such an adorable little fellow? As long as you're happy. Hearing her master's doting words, Xiao Hei's eyes filled with joy. Master, I knew that you're the best. Good girl. Not long after Xiao Hei had returned, Di Beichen and Gong Jun's figures appeared in the courtyard. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked out of the house. You're back. Di Beichen was a little surprised when he saw that the woman had taken the initiative to welcome them. Usually, whenever Hongzhuang went into closed-door cultivation to refine pills, she would enter a state where she would forget to eat and sleep. If she did not complete her research, she would not come out for the time being. However, when he saw Xiao Hei next to her, he understood what was going on. I heard from Xiao Hei that your participation in the Formation Masters exchange this time did not go well. Bailey Hongzhuang asked gently. It's all right. Di Beichen smiled faintly. Gong Jun, who was standing to one side, could not help but say, Madam, that's because you didn't go. You don't know how infuriating that fellow's words were. He speaks so arrogantly as if he's a grandmaster. What a joke. Gong Jun. Di Beichen looked at the gloomy fellow with a serious expression. Gong Jun could not help but shut his mouth, but the gloominess on his face. Bailey Hongzhuang is. Madam, you really have a divine foresight. How did you even guess that? Gong Jun looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in astonishment. His appearance was simply like prostrating himself on the ground. If he did not have such a reputation, he would not have taken the initiative to cause trouble for you in front of so many people. Bailey Hongzhuang looked calm. Ever since the news of her saving by Qingli spread, everyone knew about their relationship with the city lord's mansion. If they did not have a certain background, who would not give face to the city lord's mansion? Shen Duanyu is a formation master, who has been in the limelight in recent years. He is extremely famous in the chaotic immortal realm. Countless people fight to buy the formation stones he makes. Although Shen Duanyu's age isn't considered old, his position among array masters is top-notch. Although Gong Jun did not want to praise this arrogant fellow, he still had to speak from the facts. Chapter 67-29. In the area of array stones, any shop that has Shen Duanyu's array stones is equivalent to having an additional golden signboard. Previously, I tried to find a way to get in touch with him in hopes of buying his array stones at a high price. In this way, at least in the area of array stones, I can surpass Wanbao Pavilion. However, this guy is really too arrogant. I've asked people to see him several times, but to no avail. Every day, he says how busy he is, but I can't even see his shadow. This time, his appearance in Shiyun City is really surprising, so I wanted to take a look. Speaking up to here, Gong Jun's anger had nowhere to vent. If I knew this guy's temper was like this, I wouldn't have begged him. His words are simply infuriating. Most importantly, the people around this guy still remember that I went to see him. So he used it against me. It's fine if he humiliated me, but he even humiliated boss. This is too much. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. If it wasn't for the incident with Gong Jun, the other party wouldn't have been able to find Beichen in such a short time. Coincidentally, with this incident, Beichen became the substitute they found when they couldn't find him. Naturally, this sense of superiority came. What did he say after that? Bailey Hongzhuang turned to look at Di Beichen. You only passively provoked by the other party and didn't fight back. This doesn't fit your personality. Looking at the girl's lively appearance, Di Beichen's smile gradually widened. His smile was also filled with doting. No one knows me better than my wife. How did you do it? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Even though she knew that Beichen wouldn't be bullied by the other party like this, she was still curious about how he did it. I heard that they were discussing the layering method of trapping arrays. There was one point that they couldn't figure out. As a newcomer, I conveniently gave him some pointers. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but chuckle. So, you deliberately watched him humiliate you? Isn't this better? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Indeed. Just a second ago, the other party had been lecturing Beichen about his lack of knowledge about formations. And in the next moment, Bewitching had used his true ability to show him what a true formation was. This was a resounding slap to the face. Madam, you didn't see Shen Duanyu's expression at that time. It was too wonderful. Gong Jun couldn't help but laugh. Even when I think about it now, I still find it very funny, haha. Xiao Hei's face turned gloomy when she heard the story. There's still something so interesting after that. I actually left first and didn't even see it. What a waste. That's why I told you to calm down first. If you had stirred up trouble then, there wouldn't have been such a good show later. Gong Jun patted Xiao Hei's head with a smug look on his face. Xiao Hei slapped Gong Jun's hand. Take your salty pig trotters away. My head isn't something that just anyone can touch. Little girl, you're so soft and small, but your temper is quite big. You're so cute, so I just like to pat your head. What do you think? Gong Jun had a roguish look on his face. In the past, when Xiao Hei was angry, it was very interesting. Now that she was a little girl, her angry look was even more interesting. Chapter 67:30. Just when Bailey Hongzhuang thought the matter was over, she suddenly heard Di Beichen say, "There will be a Formation Master competition in 3 months." A Formation Master competition? That's right. Di Beichen nodded. It is said that there will be Formation Masters from every city. Are you going to participate? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Di Beichen hadn't interacted with many people since he started learning Formation Masters. Participating in such a competition would allow him to know his own level better. On the other hand, if he performed well, he could get to know some skilled seniors and be enlightened by them. Isn't it because of Shen Duanyu? After boss gave him advice, he felt embarrassed, so he brought up the Formation Master competition. He said that he would participate if he could. He wanted to use this competition to let boss know the gap between them. Under such circumstances, a man can't admit defeat, let alone my boss. Gong Jun said with righteous indignation. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She didn't care too much about it. It is good to participate in a trade competition. However, there will be Formation Masters from every city. I think the scale of this Formation Master competition will be amazing. I think so. Di Beichen thought for a while and said, this should be a very important competition. Otherwise, Shen Duanyu wouldn't care so much about it. Boss madam, you don't know about this. The Formation Master competition is a big event held every 10 years in the realm of chaos. Actually, this competition originated from the realm of chaos. The realm of chaos holds a Formation Master competition every 20 years. Gradually, the realm of chaos developed. The cultivators of the chaotic immortal realm were extremely powerful. Even the Formation Master's strength was shocking. In order to shorten the gap between the chaotic immortal realm and the immortal realm, the chaotic immortal realm changed the time limit to once every 10 years. Every time the Formation Master competition is held, many Formation Masters will improve. Over the years, the realm of chaos has done very well. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen understood. If there was such a meaning behind it, then the scale of the Array Formation Master competition was indeed not ordinary. It's said that the number of Array Masters that can participate in each city is limited. Boss hasn't mentioned this before. If we want to participate, I'm afraid we'll have to hurry up and greet them. Otherwise, once the quota is confirmed, it will be very difficult for Master to obtain the qualifications to participate. A trace of anxiety appeared on Gong Jun's face. Although he didn't know much about this array formation, he believed that his boss's array formation skills wouldn't be worse than that arrogant guy. If they lost fair and square, it would be fine. But if they didn't participate, the other party would definitely think of ways to ridicule them, saying that they didn't even have the guts to participate. That would be truly depressing. Madam, you have such a good relationship with the city lord's mansion. Why don't you go and ask? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She didn't think that they would disagree so much just to get a spot in the competition. I'll ask him later. Wife, there's no need to be so anxious, Di Beichen said. That won't do. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. This is your first time participating in the Formation Master competition. No matter what, You have to find a way to get a spot. Chapter 67:31. When Bai Ziyuan and the others saw that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had arrived, their faces were filled with surprise. They had just left in the afternoon and had returned in the evening. There must be something going on. Hongzhuang, what's the matter? Bai Qingli had also guessed this and asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and said frankly, I've come here to ask for your help. If you have something to say, just say it. There's no need to be so polite. As long as it's something we can help with, we definitely won't refuse. Bai Qingli waved her hand with a magnanimous look on her face. At this time, Di Beichen also spoke up. I heard that the Array Master competition will be held in 3 months, so I'd like to ask for a place to participate. Hearing this, a strange look appeared on the faces of Bai Qingli and the others. They didn't expect it to be such a matter. However, when they thought about how Di Beichen's array stones were selling like hotcakes in the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, everyone understood what was going on. Our city's 3 places seemed to have been confirmed. Bai Qingli frowned. Because this was a competition that was held once every 10 years, they had always attached great importance to it. Therefore, a few days ago, the people representing Xi'an City had already been confirmed. Father, is there any place that can be changed? Bai Qingli turned to look at Bai Qingli. Since Di Beichen wanted to participate in this competition, no matter what, they had to give up a place. Bai Ziyuan's face also revealed a trace of difficulty. The places for this competition had long been confirmed. If they were to change it at this juncture, it would inevitably cause displeasure in the hearts of others. The strength of their Xi'an City's array masters was considered to be not bad. Although they couldn't achieve the best results, as long as they could occupy the middle of the rankings, it would be a point of glory, and they could even obtain a lot of rewards. If they were to change to another person, Di Beichen was ultimately too young. I'll think of a way to change someone, don't worry. Even though he had some considerations in his heart, Bai Ziyuan's attitude was still very firm. No matter what, he had to make room for Di Beichen. Looking at Bai Ziyuan's face that flashed with tangled thoughts, how could Di Beichen not understand how difficult it was to allocate a quota? Even if Bai Ziyuan didn't say anything, there would still be trouble when they returned. He didn't want to make things too difficult for them. City Lord Bai, if it's too troublesome, then forget about it. Di Beichen's expression was indifferent. After all, this matter had been determined a long time ago. He rashly asked them to change it, which was forcing them to do. Bai Ziyuan waved his hand. You've helped us so much. How can you not handle such a small matter? At this moment, Yang Han smiled and said, Brother Bai, there's no need for you to be so busy. Young Master Di, it just happens that our Qingyang city still has a spot. I wonder if you're willing to fight as a formation master of our Qingyang city. Brother Yang this? Bai Ziyuan looked at Yang Han in confusion. The level of our Qingyang city's formation masters can't compare to yours. Look, we only managed to invite a formation master to fight in our place, after promising rewards with great difficulty. However, we never thought that he would be poached away by another city in the end. This is simply infuriating. We're still missing a spot. I was just thinking about who to find, and it just so happens that young Master D plans on participating. This is basically specially prepared for our Qingyang city. Chapter 67:32. Young Master D, what do you think? Yang Han looked at Di Beichen seriously. However, I have to say this first. Our Qingyang city's strength belongs to the periphery of the entire realm of chaotic immortals, and we are even weaker in the field of formations. If you are willing to participate as a formation master of Qingyang City, I'm afraid you will inevitably be laughed at. Speaking of this, Yang Han and Yang Qinshua's faces revealed a trace of helplessness. They had already tried their best to change this matter, but they were too weak in this aspect. Although they could also spend a lot of money to invite formation masters, most formation masters with status were not willing to join them at all. As for some formation masters who were not strong enough, they would have no impact on the results of the competition. It was not worthwhile to spend so much effort on them. Under such circumstances, They could only leave it to fate. Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang looked at each other, and there was a trace of a smile in their eyes. "Thank you, City Lord Yang." Bewitching cupped his hands with a smile on his face. He had met very few formation masters since he started learning formation masters, but he vaguely understood that he had learned from Senior Huangfu for so long, so his level should be decent. If he took up a spot as a formation master with strong formation masters, he would inevitably feel a little guilty, but it just so happened that Qingyang City's environment was suitable for him, so he did not need to feel too much pressure. Seeing Bewitching agree, Yang Han also smiled and joked, "You can't run away halfway, otherwise I really won't be able to find a formation master in such a short time." Bewitching smiled faintly. "City Lord Yang, don't worry, I will definitely participate." "May I know young Master D's grade as a formation master?" Yang Qinxue asked curiously. She originally only knew that Hong Zhuang's alchemy skills were excellent, but she never thought that Bewitching's formation masters were also very good. The two of them were really a match made in heaven. "I haven't taken the grade test yet." As soon as these words came out, everyone present was stunned. Originally, when Bewitching suddenly said that he wanted to participate in the competition, everyone thought that his array skills were pretty good. Who would have thought that he didn't even pass the level test? "We haven't been in the realm of chaotic immortals for long. Originally, we were going to take the test. However, there is no place in the city for the test. Therefore, we have been delayed," Bailey Hongzhuang explained. Everyone was enlightened. It was normal that they hadn't gone through any tests, since they had just arrived in the chaotic immortal realm. However, this also proved that they hadn't been in the immortal realm for long. So his formation skills, even though their hearts were filled with doubts, no one said anything. Yang Han was also very indifferent. Compared to Yang Lingfeng's illness, this quota was nothing. It was just a small matter. In any case, every time Qingyang City participated in this competition, there would be such a scene. He was already accustomed to it, but it was inevitable that Bewitching would be looked down upon by everyone. However, he felt that Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang weren't people who would be easily defeated by words. Presumably, this matter wouldn't affect them too much. After Bewitching thanked them, he left with Bailey Hongzhuang. They could see that there were some doubts in everyone's hearts. However, under the current circumstances, they couldn't explain it in detail. After all, he himself hadn't taken the grade test. If he relied on his own words, it was obviously not enough. It was better to wait until the day of the competition. Chapter 6733. Indeed, Bewitching nodded. It wasn't that he didn't want to tell Yang Han and the others about his array master grade, but he had never been assessed for it. Although he knew that array stones were also divided into grades, the spirit arrays left behind by He Shinjun did not have their grades marked. When he was studying with Master Zhongli, Master Zhongli had never mentioned this point, so he had never thought about it. Since coming here, he understood that array techniques also had clear grades, but he wasn't clear about these grades. Bailey Hongzhuang naturally knew about Beichen's situation. In her opinion, whether it was He Shinjun or Zhongli Shaoran, their array techniques were extremely powerful. Grades were probably nothing in their eyes, so they didn't deliberately mention it to Beichen. So they still didn't know the grade of this array master. Originally, they thought that by participating in this array master exchange, they might be able to figure it out. But who would have thought that Shen Duanyu would target them at every turn? Now it was obviously impossible to make friends with an array master and figure it out. After all, between an unknown array master and a rising star in the array world, anyone would choose the latter. Since we are participating as array masters of Qingyang City, I think we will have to go to Qingyang City soon. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I wonder where in Qingyang City the sealed territory, where we can obtain the illusory form bead is. It just so happens that we are also going there. Ling Feng hasn't completely recovered yet, but City Lord Yang must be very fast at gathering information. It won't be long before you know. In the next few days, Bailey Hongzhuang was still trying to use monster crystals to perform alchemy. With her usual level of alchemy, the rate of failure was really terrifying. Master seems to have failed again. Xiao Hei shrunk her neck. These past few days, she had been smelling the scent of ruined pills. Even she felt that it was a waste. Xiao Bai glanced at Xiao Hei and said, "What do you mean failed again? Mistress hasn't succeeded these past few days, all right? What kind of truth is that?" Xiao Hei's eyes widened, and she said, "No wonder they say that being an alchemist is a very expensive profession. Normally Master's success rate in alchemy is extremely high, so I don't think so. But if it's an alchemist with a higher failure rate, then how many medicinal ingredients would be wasted?" Well, Gong Jun came again yesterday to deliver the herbs. Bewitching looked at the two little fellows who were muttering and lamenting at the side. He immediately rubbed their little heads. "Hong Zhuang is doing research, so it's inevitable that there will be waste. The two of you are quite free now, and your cultivation has also become undisciplined." The two little ones immediately revealed a guilty expression. Ever since they transformed into their human forms, although they did not accept this form, they had to admit that there were many people who liked them. Now, even if they were halfway to the Immortal Treasure Pavilion, there would still be people sending them delicious food. Suddenly, they felt that it was not a bad idea to swindle people like this for the time being. "Let's go cultivate now." In the next moment, the two little balls disappeared in an instant. Bewitching laughed involuntarily. As expected, as long as the two little fellows were around, they would be especially noisy. He glanced again at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was continuing to perform alchemy. Only then did he feel at ease, and walked to a nearby place to continue studying array techniques. Chapter 67-34. The Governor's Residence. "Father, young Master D doesn't even have a formation master's grade. If he participates in the competition, I'm afraid he'll be laughed at even more, right?" A trace of helplessness appeared on Yang Qinshue's face. She was indeed willing to let Bewitching participate in the competition, but it was inevitable that they would encounter formation masters from other cities on the way. Every formation master had their own grade, hanging in front of their chest. If Bewitching's grade was empty, they, who were already being ridiculed, would probably become a joke. Over the years, we've become accustomed to all kinds of comments. Speaking of which, the more troublesome ones are the few cities that are usually quite competitive with each other. When the time comes, we just have to ignore them. After all, in terms of formation masters, we're indeed no match for them. Young Han looked very indifferent. After experiencing so many times, he was already used to it. Although Bewitching did not have a grade, and it was inevitable that the ridicule would be louder, he was not worried about himself. He was only worried about whether this would have a great impact on Bewitching. After all, no matter how indifferent one was, the feeling of being ridiculed by others was not something that ordinary people could stand. "Sai, I heard that Bewitching's formation stones are selling very well in Xi'an City. I'm sure his formation skills are quite good." Yang Qinshu sighed, but her voice was inevitably filled with some discouragement. The formation master competition was the competition that she did not want to hold the most. Every time it was about to start, she would feel a headache. To put it bluntly, everyone was not optimistic about Bewitching's formation skills. This was because a cultivator who had just ascended, no matter how talented he was, would definitely need to study for a while. However, Hong Zhuang had only been here for a short period of time, and her medical skills were still so outstanding, so they left a trace of hope for her. Half a month later, after countless attempts, Bailey Hongzhuang had also successfully refined the medicinal pill. After checking, she found that the medicinal pill's effects had indeed improved by quite a bit after adding the demon crystals. After her first success, her success rate gradually began to increase. Now her progress was considered quite good. "Hongzhuang, we need to pack up and get ready to go to Qingyang City." Bewitching walked into the room and looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was focused on her research, and reminded her. "Okay." Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and smiled. She put away the cauldron, changed her clothes, and left the room with Bewitching. "Boss, I'll go with you." Gong Jun was a bit anxious. He wanted to go with his boss. "The Immortal Treasure Pavilion's business is so good now. You won't be able to leave anytime soon. so you don't have to follow us. We're only going to participate in the competition, and we'll return when it's over. Hearing this, Gongjun felt a bit depressed. However, the Celestial Treasure Pavilion was indeed rapidly developing, and the 10,000 Treasures Pavilion was being suppressed by him. If he left at this time, the Wanbao Pavilion might do something. Maybe when he returned, the situation would have completely changed. Boss madam, be careful this time. Don't worry. After saying goodbye to Gongjun, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen went to the city leader's palace. Xiao He and Xiao Bai turned into their beast forms and sat on their master's shoulders for the sake of convenience. Di Xiaofeng and the others already knew that they were going to participate in the Formation Master competition. After learning about it, they all went into seclusion in Shiyun City. Chapter 67-35. When the two of them arrived at the city governor's mansion, Yang Han and the others were about to bid farewell to Bai Ziyuan and the others. Brother Bai, let's meet at the Array Master competition. Okay. Have a safe trip. The two of them didn't exchange pleasantries. After all, they often met each other. In addition, the distance between the two cities wasn't far. Basically, they would see each other soon. Therefore, they didn't exchange pleasantries with each other and became more casual. It was obvious that young Lingfeng's body had recovered. His face was ruddy, and he didn't look weak at all. The thing that made him the happiest was that his problem had been solved. Although the poison had been cured, his heart was still beating like a drum. If the poison was detoxified, and this problem still didn't get better, then it would be really terrible. Fortunately, such a thing didn't happen. Everything seemed to be going smoothly. He was right to come here this time. Di Beichen and Yang Lingfeng also bid farewell to Bai Ziyuan and the others. Then, they got into City Governor Yang's carriage. City Governor Yang's carriage was very spacious. Perhaps to avoid the two of them, City Governor Yang sat in the first carriage. Bailey Hongzhuang, Yang Lingfeng, and Yang Qinxue sat in the other carriage. There's only half a month left. Will we be able to make it to the competition venue? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little curious. Logically speaking, with so many cities participating in the competition, the location of the competition should be quite far away. However, she didn't know the exact location. The chaotic immortal realm holds a competition every once in a while. For convenience, the competition venue is a small world. Whenever there's a competition, everyone will go to the small world. Every city has a teleportation formation. Therefore, we only need to go there directly 3 days in advance, Yang Qinxue explained with a smile. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang understood. With the teleportation formation, everything would be much more convenient. Qinxue, are there many people who go to the Array Master competition every year? Although they knew about the competition now, they didn't know much about it. Yang Qinxue nodded slightly. The Array Master competition is a grand event that happens once every 10 years. Arrays have many uses on a daily basis, so there are many Array Masters. Although each city only had 3 places to participate, there would still be many Array Masters coming to learn more about array formations. This transportation array isn't sealed, and cultivators who are interested can also come along. You just need to pay a certain amount of blood spirit stones. Every time the Array Master competition is held, it will be very lively. Yang Lingfeng added, there will also be a bazaar at that time. The quality of the goods in this bazaar are usually quite good. Who knows, you might even be able to find some treasures. If you guys are interested, you can go and take a look. That's right. Although Ling Feng and I haven't had much luck in this aspect, almost every time a market is held, someone will find a treasure. It's very interesting. Yang Qinxue's interest was piqued when she mentioned this. Her eyes were filled with excitement. The treasures in this market are of such high quality? Bailey Hongzhuang was also surprised. She had visited many markets, but she had never seen a market in the chaotic immortal realm. Chapter 67-36. Many of the things in this market come from various secret realms. Some of them even come from various planes, so there are many new and interesting things. Even for us, every time we go there. It's very novel because the things that appear are different every time. Yang Lingfeng smiled. Just by looking at Hong Zhuang's expression, he knew that she was very interested in this matter. So he didn't mind saying more. This market is very big. Some cultivators will casually set up stalls with the things they made or found. In this regard, it is very casual, but the control is also very strict, and no one is allowed to cause any trouble. Bailey Hong Zhuang's heart was clear. Although fighting was common in the chaotic immortal domain, and in Shiyin City, it was common to see other people's heads bleeding. But in a place where order was needed, it would definitely not be chaotic. In addition, if you achieve good results in the Array Master competition, the rewards are also very generous. Yang Lingfeng continued to introduce. Generally, the top 30 cultivators will be rewarded, and the top 30 cultivators, after the top 10, will receive some secret books on Array Masters. The top 10 cultivators will not only receive secret books on Array Masters, but also a chance to go to the Enlightenment Tablet. Enlightenment Tablet? The Enlightenment Tablet is a very strange place. There is a very pure power of heaven and earth there. If the cultivators who go there have good luck, they can use this power of heaven and earth to comprehend a divine ability that is most suitable for them. Divine abilities are different from martial skills. They are the most suitable for the cultivator, and the effect is often very amazing. Speaking of this, a trace of yearning appeared in Yang Lingfeng's eyes. The Enlightenment Tablet is a place that many people dream of. However, it is very difficult to get into the top 10. The number of cities in the chaotic immortal realm is very shocking. Needless to say, the number of Array Masters who participate in the competition is very high. Not to mention the top 30 cultivators in our Qingyang city. We haven't even entered the top 100. So, this is just hearsay. Yang Qinshua's voice was full of helplessness. On the other hand, she was also reminding Bewitching not to have too high expectations for the competition, because this matter had nothing to do with their Qingyang city at all. Thinking too much about it would only increase their envy. Bailey Hongzhuang and Yang Qinshua naturally understood the deeper meaning of Yang Qinshua's words. They immediately changed the topic and talked about other things. They chatted happily along the way. Qingyang City was located next to Shiyin City. When the group arrived, Bailey Hongzhuang saw the scene of Qingyang City through the window of the carriage. The liveliness of Qingyang City was similar to that of Shiyin City. It was just that the architectural style here was slightly different, and it seemed to have its own unique characteristics. The carriage stopped in front of the city lord's mansion. When Bewitching appeared, many people in the city noticed them. Anyone who had a very close relationship with the city lord would naturally attract a lot of attention. I've already sent someone to prepare rooms for the two of you. Why don't you take a stroll around the mansion with Qinshua and the others? You don't have to restrain yourselves. Why don't you return to your rooms to rest, or take a stroll around the city after dinner? Yang Han said with a smile. Many thanks, City Lord Yang. Chapter 6737. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bewitching strolled around the city lord's mansion under the guidance of Yang Qinshua and Xiao Lingfeng. The city lord's mansion in Qingyang City was similar to City Lord Bai's mansion. However, they were both designed according to the style of the city, so there were some differences. In comparison, City Lord Bai's mansion was more winding and serene, while City Lord Yang's mansion was more spacious. It was hard to say which one was better, only that they had different styles. This side is the dining area, and your living quarters are on the other side. Once the arrangements are made, you can go and rest, Yang Qinshua said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. From this layout, it could be seen that the place where they lived was a very good room. The servants of the city lord's mansion prepared the food very quickly. Even though they had just returned, the food was already prepared. Perhaps because City Lord Yang had specifically instructed them to prepare the food, all of the food was the specialty of Qingyang City. It was quite a unique taste. Xiao He and Xiao Bai had always been the most interested in these things. They only stopped when their stomachs were round. After the meal, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others strolled around Qingyang City. and noticed the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. The Myriad Treasures Pavilion could be found in almost every city in the realm of chaos. However, the business of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion in Qingyang City was much better than Guan Hongtian's. Yang Lingfeng noticed that Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had stopped in front of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. He smiled and said, "The shopkeeper of our city's Myriad Treasures Pavilion is better at doing business than shopkeeper Guan. His character is also very good, so business in the city is very good." Hearing this, the two of them also understood. As a shopkeeper, one's character was extremely important. With Guan Hongtian's narrow-minded personality, if it weren't for the fact that he was running the Myriad Treasures Pavilion, he would have closed it down long ago. Someone like Guan Hongtian can actually become the shopkeeper of the Myriad Treasures Pavilion. It's really hard to believe. Yang Qinshue's face was full of disbelief. Normally, I think the Myriad Treasures Pavilion has some tricks up their sleeves. Who would have thought it would be like this? Guan Hongtian spent a lot of effort to get this position. If he didn't do something, he wouldn't have gotten it. Yang Lingfeng sneered. Clearly, he understood some of the key points. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was clear. She had already heard Gong Jun mention this before. In fact, she really felt guilty about it. If Guan Hongtian continues like this, he won't be able to keep his position for much longer. Di Beichen said slowly. With Gong Jun around, even if he continues to sit in this position, he will inevitably be bullied. That's true. Yang Lingfeng smiled faintly. His business share has been snatched away, and he has lost face among the shopkeepers of the Myriad Treasure Pavilion. From the looks of it, I think Gong Jun's goal will be achieved soon. Bailey Hongzhuang smirked. Gong Jun's business was getting better and better. Although it was due to their efforts in the beginning, it was all thanks to Gong Jun's ability that he had such a stable business now. The room prepared by the city lord was indeed excellent. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Yang Lingfeng moved in, they found that everything here was extremely comfortable. Not only did he prepare food and bathing products, he even prepared some clothes for them to change into. In addition, he also sent 2 maids to take care of them, but the 2 declined. Chapter 67-38. On this day, when Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen went to eat, they saw that Yang Han and the other 2 looked a little strange. "Governor Yang, did something happen?" Di Beichen asked. Yang Han waved his hand and said, "Something did happen, but it has nothing to do with us. I'd like to hear the details. You've only been in the chaotic immortal realm for a short time. I don't think it's about the ancient battlefield," Yang Han said with a faint smile. "Ancient battlefield?" Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's expressions changed, and they said it in unison. Looking at their expressions, Yang Han and the other 2 were a little surprised. Just by looking at their expressions, they knew that not only had they heard about it, but they also seemed to be very concerned about it. "You've heard about it?" "Yes, I've heard about it before." Bailey Hongzhuang's expression returned to normal and she asked, "What happened at the ancient battlefield?" The ancient battlefield is actually a small world, but it's different from the small world we're looking for. It's said that there are 2 divine statues in it. Anyone who has been baptized by the divine statues will be stronger than ordinary cultivators and can better understand the essence of elemental power. However, the ancient battlefield has disappeared for a long time, and people have gradually forgotten about it. This time, we're talking about it because of a person, the Qing Devil. The Qing Devil. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen couldn't help but look at each other. They had a deep impression of the Qing Devil. The Qing Devil had possessed Jun Lingxuan, but he didn't succeed in coming out of the ancient battlefield. According to the 9-tailed Inferno Fox, the Qing Devil was restricted by the law of heaven and earth, and couldn't go out of the exit with them. After such a long time, they had never heard any news about the Azure Fiend. Subconsciously, they had almost forgotten about this person. They didn't expect that Governor Yang would mention the Qing Devil today. Naturally, they couldn't help but pay attention to it. They were sworn enemies. "Why did you suddenly mention this person?" Di Beichen asked slowly in a deep voice. Qing Devil disappeared after he entered the ancient battlefield. There was no news about him for so many years. But he reappeared not long ago. Yang Han sighed. He changed his face, so he must have possessed someone else's body. However, he told everyone directly that he was the Qing Devil. I heard that Qing Devil was lucky enough to see the Statue of Light on the ancient battlefield. What a great opportunity! Yang Lingfeng's expression changed slightly. Although he has been trapped in the ancient battlefield for so many years, as long as he can see the Light God statue, it will be worth it. That's right. An opportunity like the Divine Light statue is not something that can be easily encountered. Back then, so many cultivators entered the ancient battlefield for this opportunity. However, so far, it seems that he is the only one who has succeeded. Yang Lingfeng looked into the distance. The Qing Devil was quite famous back then. Now that he has obtained such an opportunity, I'm afraid he will soar to the sky in the future. Many people have spent many years trying to break through to the elementary immortal realm. The Qing Devil's speed of breaking through in the future will be much faster than that of ordinary cultivators. Indeed, his future is limitless. Even Governor Yang Han couldn't help but look envious at this moment. Chapter 6739. Yang Han and Bai Ziyuan were the same. In the eyes of many cultivators in the chaotic immortal realm, it was already their greatest achievement to become the city lords. However, they knew clearly that if they had enough potential, they would not be willing to stop here. As a cultivator, what he wanted to pursue the most was naturally a higher realm. It was only after he understood his own condition that he made such a choice that seemed to be the best, but also somewhat helpless choice. The only way to change their current situation was to obtain extremely powerful fated chances. The fated chances in the ancient battlefield were the best among all the fated chances. Hearing that the Qing Devil had such a great harvest, they wished they could go to the ancient battlefield to explore it. However, he also knew how rare such a fated chance was. So many cultivators had entered the ancient battlefield, but only the Qing Devil had such a great harvest. It only proved that the Qing Devil was really lucky. Bailey Hongzhuang observed Yang Han's expression. After thinking for a while, she decided not to tell him that they had also been to the ancient battlefield. In fact, all the cultivators who had entered the ancient battlefield had seen the two statues. They were just lucky. The Qing Devil was just one of them. The Qing Devil is in the immortal realm? How powerful is he? Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a while and asked. What they had been worried about had happened. This guy really had the ability to leave the ancient battlefield. According to this guy's character, he would not let them go easily. However, for now, he should not know that they had come to the immortal realm. Even so, they would meet each other sooner or later. There was not much time left for them. He used to be a powerful cultivator in the immortal realm. His strength was very outstanding back then. That was why he had a certain reputation in the immortal realm, where there were many geniuses. It was said that he had stayed in the ancient battlefield for many years. His strength was slightly damaged. However, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Now that he has come out and has been baptized by the statues, I think he will recover soon, and even become stronger than before. Bailey Hongzhuang and Bai Ziyuan looked at each other. What they were most worried about now was that the Qing Devil would go to the upper world to make trouble for them. If this guy went to the upper realm, it would be a real catastrophe. As a cultivator of the immortal region, it's not easy to go to the lower planes. Not to mention how difficult it is to find the upper planes among the many planes. Even if he does go, he will be suppressed by the laws of heaven and earth, and his strength will be limited. Don't worry too much, Bewitching comforted. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Bewitching was right, but she still made up her mind to go back to the upper realm to check on her family's safety. If something really happened, they would be able to find a way to solve it. Yang Han and the rest noticed the complicated expressions on the faces of Bailey Hongzhuang and Lin Yiqian, and they were a little puzzled. Hongzhuang, do you know this Qing Devil? Bailey Hongzhuang paused for a moment, then waved her hand. No, it's just that we've never heard of the stories of cultivators in the immortal domain, so we yearn for such an opportunity. I see. Yang Qinxue smiled faintly. There are many powerful cultivators in the immortal domain. Although this Qing devil is famous, there are many powerful cultivators in the immortal domain. If we have the chance to enter the immortal domain in the future, we will know more. Chapter 6740. When the two of them returned to the room, they were in a very complicated mood. What I've been worried about has happened. I knew this Qing devil was not easy to deal with. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed and leaned on the table, looking a little distressed. When this guy was in the ancient battlefield, his fighting strength had been suppressed, and the speed of his strength improvement was very slow. Although she always had a hunch that this guy would come out, she still hoped that he would be trapped for a longer time to buy them more time. Who would have thought that he would come out so soon? With their current strength, they didn't know how long it would take for them to break through to the elementary immortal realm. Once this guy heard about their reputation, he would come to find them very soon. This is not good news, but you don't have to worry too much for now. Bewitching was calmer. Qing devil doesn't know that we are here. He just came back. I think he wants to regain his former position by releasing this news. It's easy to say, but he has disappeared for so many years. It will take some time for him to consolidate his position. What's more, he must have a lot of enemies. He can't be distracted in a short time. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. I think if Xiao Sou also came to the upper world, she will go to Qing devil immediately after hearing this news. Now that he thought about it, Xiao Sou was really brave. She did win the bet. Qing devil really came out of the ancient battlefield and had a high status in the immortal realm. It's possible, but it won't be easy for her to find him. On this point, Bewitching and Bailey Hongzhuang had the same opinion. They both thought that Xiao Sou might have come to the immortal realm. Otherwise, they would have spent so much effort to find her, which was very strange. We have to be careful in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang had a helpless look on her face. This array master competition was a very eye-catching event, but just as Bewitching had said, the other party would not notice them in a short period of time, so there was still some time. Originally, the current situation was very comfortable. Everyone only needed to cultivate steadily, and they believed that a breakthrough would happen sooner or later. Now that there was such a huge rock in their hearts, they had no choice but to speed up. In the next few days, Bewitching continued to study array techniques, while Bailey Hongzhuang continued to cultivate and refine pills. Yang Qinxue didn't know that Bailey Hongzhuang was experimenting, but when they saw the failure rate, they were completely dumbfounded. With such a failure rate, the cost of refining a batch of pills for Hongzhuang was simply too high. Hence, when Bailey Hongzhuang offered to give them pills, both of them chose to reject it. What kind of joke was this? Hongzhuang didn't know how many medicinal materials it took to refine this bottle of pills. If they didn't know about it, it would be fine. But if they accepted it when they knew, it would be too shameless. Seeing that the two of them refused so firmly, Bailey Hongzhuang also had some doubts in her heart. The quality of the pills I refined is not bad, and the quality of these pills will be much better than ordinary pills. You can try it. Chapter 6741. The quality was excellent. Of course they believed in this. With such a low success rate, it would be too much of a blow if the quality was not good enough. Hongzhuang's medical skills are indeed incomparable to others, but her alchemy skills are really... Yang Lingfeng looked helpless. Among all the alchemists he had met, the one with the highest failure rate was Hongzhuang. I'm now thinking about the pills sold by the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. That's really a losing business. Yang Qinxue sighed inwardly. They had also bought Hongzhuang's pills from the Immortal Treasure Pavilion. She had already tried them, and the effects were indeed better than ordinary pills. Before she had seen Hongzhuang's alchemy skills, she had always thought that Hongzhuang's alchemy skills were not only outstanding in medicine, but also in alchemy. She was simply impeccable. Now that she had seen this scene, she finally understood. Sure enough, the heavens would not give all the excellence to one person. Even if there was excellence, there would definitely be some weaknesses. Although it's a bit of a loss, the Immortal Treasure Pavilion's reputation has at least been established, so it's still not bad. Yang Lingfeng smiled as he thought about it. Even if Hong Zhuang's alchemy skills are very costly, her medical skills alone are already excellent enough. You're right. Yang Qinxue nodded slightly. If she's so excellent in every aspect, wouldn't we suffer a great blow? Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, they had already arrived at the location of the Array Master competition. The day before they set off, the city lord's manor held a banquet. It was a small banquet, and only the Array Masters who would represent Qingyang City in the competition were invited. When Bailey Hongzhuang and Yang Lingfeng attended the banquet, they saw the other two participants. Compared to the two of them, Di Beichen was clearly younger. However, as cultivators, they did not look much different on the surface. So you're Di Beichen. A man slowly walked up to Di Beichen with a smile on his lips, but his eyes revealed a trace of undisguised disdain and contempt. What can I do for you? Di Beichen remained calm. He could clearly see the contempt shown by the other party. Naturally, he also understood that this person was here to cause trouble. I heard that you actually dared to compete with Shen Duanyu. Aren't you just asking to be humiliated? There was a trace of disgust in the man's eyes. It's fine if you want to embarrass yourself, but to compete with someone like you is simply dragging us down. We don't know each other. Di Beichen glanced at the man indifferently. His meaning was very simple. We don't know each other at all. Don't involve me in anything you do. The man naturally understood as well. His expression immediately darkened. You're so young, yet you don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Wait until you enter the Array Master competition, then you'll understand how insignificant you are. It seems that you also know how insignificant you are. Di Beichen's cold voice was laced with a hint of sarcasm. Under the moonlight, his cold and stern appearance looked distant and ethereal, as if he had a layer of immortal aura. You. The man was directly blocked, his face as black as the bottom of a pot. Beichen, you're here. Yang Lingfeng's face rippled with a warm smile as he slowly walked to Di Beichen's side. Seeing Yang Lingfeng's appearance, the man finally left. What happened? Why did I hear that you wanted to compete with Shen Duanyu? Chapter 6742. There is indeed such a thing. Di Beichen's lips held a trace of a smile as he replied. He didn't take what happened that day to heart, but judging from the current situation, Shen Duanyu must have purposely publicized this matter to make him lose face. Hearing the man's affirmative answer, Yang Lingfeng frowned slightly. You and Shen Duanyu have a conflict? This guy does have some skills in array techniques, but his character is indeed petty. He now had some understanding of Beichen's character. If Shen Duanyu didn't cause trouble, things wouldn't have developed to this point. It had to be said that Beichen had been in the limelight recently. The bird that sticks out gets shot. It wasn't strange for him to appear in such a situation. So, you decided to participate in the Array Master competition because of this? Yang Lingfeng suddenly understood. He had never heard Di Beichen mention participating in the competition before, but he suddenly brought it up not long ago. Obviously, Shen Duanyu urged him to do so. It is related to this matter, but more importantly, it is because I want to go and see for myself. Do you want me to help mediate the situation? Yang Lingfeng asked with concern. If he makes a big deal out of this matter, once you lose, I'm afraid he'll add fuel to the fire and embarrass you. He won't win. Di Beichen smiled and turned his head, giving Yang Lingfeng a reassuring look. Yang Lingfeng's worries disappeared with the wind when he saw Di Beichen's calm and confident eyes. Yang Lingfeng didn't understand why he felt that Di Beichen wouldn't lose when he saw him like this. Ever since he decided to participate in the competition, Di Beichen never emphasized his abilities in array techniques. Until this moment, he suddenly felt that perhaps Beichen's array techniques were really good. Forget it. If things really get to that point, I will think of a way to settle it. Yang Lingfeng sighed in his heart. As a good friend, he should cheer for his brother instead of not believing in him from the beginning. Fan Guangshuan looked at Di Beichen, who was chatting happily with Yang Lingfeng not far away with a trace of jealousy in his eyes. This guy doesn't have any ability at all, but he still puts on airs. What a joke. Shihai shook his head. When he goes to the competition, he will be humiliated. Why are you so anxious? I just can't stand him. He is obviously a greenhorn. but he thinks he is so great. Shen Duanyu is a rare genius, and he will definitely shine in the competition. We will inevitably be looked down on by others, and now we are involved in this matter. Even if we have no relationship with Bewitching, is really unlucky. Fan Guangshuan secretly spat. Recently, he had been working hard on his array skills. However, he was very clear that there was still a big gap between their array skills and others. Originally, he wanted to participate in the competition in a low-key manner, but now, it was impossible to keep a low profile. At this point, they are young Master Yang's lifesavers. The city lord will not revoke his qualifications no matter what. If you target them now, it will only cause young Master Yang to be unhappy, so it is better to remain silent. Chapter 6743. The next morning, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had already made their preparations. They set off in the direction of the teleportation formation. Fan Guangshuan and Shi Hai were clearly on the same side. They had a few formation masters with them as well. They were probably going to the competition to learn as well. Bewitching had been purposefully ostracized by them, but they did not notice it at all when they stood with Yang Lingfeng and the others. Instead, Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng became rather displeased when they noticed this. They could see these petty actions very clearly. Unfortunately, Qingyang City just happened to be in dire need of people to fight, so they could only act like they did not see anything. Even if they failed to obtain a good result every time, they could not afford to lose face. If they did not even participate, that would truly be embarrassing. We'll be arriving in the miniature world of the competition today. Every year, we'll have a special residence. Once we're settled in, we'll go there and look around. On one hand, we can go to the market to have a look, and on the other hand, Beichin can interact with the other formation masters. This will be the largest gathering of formation masters, Yang Qinxue smiled. That'll depend on whether or not anyone is willing to interact with him, Fan Guangshuan said coldly. The atmosphere immediately stiffened. Fan Guangshuan, what do you mean by that? Yang Qinxue's face had already chilled. She could already tell that these people had been targeting him the entire time, but she really could not bear to see them go so far in front of them. Fan Guangshuan's attitude improved slightly when he saw Yang Qinxue become angry. He explained, Miss Yang, I'm telling the truth. All the formation masters in the neighboring cities know about his competition with Shen Duanyu. Let alone him. Even we might become laughingstocks in the eyes of others. So what if you don't want to interact with him? A sliver of anger appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's face as well. She might not care if others targeted her, but she just could not stand it when they targeted Beichin. Miss, you sure make it sound simple. It doesn't feel good to be targeted for no reason. Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. If that's the case, have you always been looked up to when we weren't around? Everything depends on strength. This sentence directly shut Fan Guangshuan's mouth, and his face darkened again. I hope you really have that ability. Bailey Hongzhuang looked casual. If they really lost, they would accept it calmly. It was not a big deal. Since it was in the process of learning, it was inevitable that he would encounter some people who were stronger than him. This was very normal. However, this kind of thing was being used by others. This was the most unpleasant thing. If one's skills were not as good as others, then they would just have to swallow everything. However, bullying others with power was a different story altogether. The corners of Beichin's lips curled up slightly as he looked at the pretty girl who was standing up for him. His wife seemed exceptionally cute today. You don't have to be angry with them because of me. It's normal for them to be angry because of me. The woman raised her eyebrows and said in a domineering tone, In any case, I can't say anything bad about you in front of me. Beichin chuckled, and a trace of sweetness appeared in his eyes. When Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng saw this scene, they could not help but look at each other. They were thoroughly convinced by this display of affection. Was it really okay to show off their love in this kind of environment? Chapter 6744. The sudden words caused Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng's backs to stiffen. They silently turned their heads, and saw their father's sharp and urgent gaze. Their father had often mentioned this to them in the past. He felt that they were not young anymore, and that the earlier they got married, the earlier they could start a family, the livelier their family would be. They had always thought of ways to avoid this, and thought that it was over. They never thought that Hong Zhuang and Yang Lingfeng's public display of affection would agitate their father and bring it up again. "Father, there's actually no need to rush this." Yang Lingfeng smiled embarrassedly. Yang Han ignored his quibbling. "Your sister is fine. She and Qingli will be together sooner or later. Speaking of which, you're the biggest problem. Previously, because of what happened in Hong City, it's fine. Now that it's settled, you shouldn't delay any longer. Find a girl you like soon." Yang Lingfeng's face fell. He turned his head to look at Yang Qinxue, only to find that his sister was blushing. She looked like she was secretly in love. "Father, I've just recovered. All these years, I've felt like I've been crippled. You should give me some time to change my mindset, right?" Yang Han thought about it, and felt that Yang Lingfeng's words made some sense. What had happened earlier was a huge blow to any man. It would indeed take some time for him to completely change his mentality. "Fine, then I'll give you some time. Don't delay it for too long." Yang Lingfeng chuckled. "I don't have a goal yet, so it's still too early. But my sister is different. She and Qingli have been delayed for so many years. If they get married earlier, you and Uncle Bai can have grandchildren sooner, right?" Yang Qinxue saw that her brother had sold her out in the blink of an eye. She immediately glared at Yang Lingfeng fiercely. All these years, she did not realize that this guy had the potential to betray others. Now that the poison was cured, he had turned bad. "Father, don't listen to his nonsense," Yang Qinxue said anxiously. "Qinxue, your brother's words do make sense." Yang Han nodded slightly. In fact, they had wanted to discuss this matter when they attended Bai Ziyuan's birthday banquet. It was just that Lingfeng's matter had delayed it. At that time, they had put all their thoughts on detoxifying the poison. So naturally, they didn't have the mood to talk about this matter. However, after the array formation master competition ended, they could go back and have a good talk. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other in astonishment. They did not feel sorry for dragging others into this mess. Sure enough, all parents in the world were the same. Urging people to get married could be said to be everywhere. When Yang Qinxue saw that she couldn't change Yang Han's mind, she could only glare fiercely at Yang Lingfeng. "Just you wait." Yang Lingfeng chuckled and purposely pointed to the front. "Look, Qingli is there." The woman was slightly startled. She quickly restrained her anger and looked ahead nervously. After realizing that there was no one in front of her, she realized that Yang Lingfeng was teasing her. Her face darkened again. "Get over here." The originally awkward atmosphere became joyous as the siblings bickered with each other. The other array masters walked behind them, keeping a certain distance from them, so that they didn't affect each other. Chapter 6745. As soon as they arrived, Bailey Hongzhuang found that there were densely packed buildings in front of her. At this moment, there were already many people shuttling back and forth. There were also many people constantly appearing from the teleportation array and walking inside. Every time the array master competition is held, the participants in each city have already been arranged to live in their respective residences. This area is where the participants from each city live. Let's go to the residences first. After settling down, we can move freely, Yang Qinxue said with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly and followed behind Yang Han. Observing the situation of the others beside her, they didn't show any surprise on their faces. It was probably not their first time participating in the Array Master competition. In the entire team, she and Di Beichen were the only ones who didn't know about it. Although there were many residences in front of them, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others continued to go deeper and found that the road was quite long. Yang Lingfeng seemed to have seen Bailey Hongzhuang's doubts and sighs. He lowered his voice and explained, "The residences are determined according to the rankings of the last Array Master competition. The higher the ranking of the city, the better the residence is arranged. Our Qingyang city has never performed well in this aspect, so the residences are relatively remote. They didn't avoid this point too much. In any case, they had already talked about this situation before coming to the competition. Bewitching and Yang Lingfeng didn't say much. The weak were prey to the strong. This was the most obvious in the world of cultivators. No matter where, as long as one had strength, they would naturally be treated much better than others. The place where Uncle Bai and the others live is better than where we live. The location is also closer to the center. It's also quite far from where we live to the market, but there's nothing we can do about it. It's just a bit further. At most, we'll spend more time. It's no big deal. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. It was because Yang Han and the others were so open in this aspect that they felt more at ease. To be honest, if Qingyang City had always had good results in this aspect, they wouldn't have had the chance to participate in the competition. Seeing Bewitching's nonchalant attitude, Yang Lingfeng and the others smiled. Although the other formation masters didn't say anything, it was clear from their expressions that they were dissatisfied with the situation. It was only because they knew they weren't strong enough that they chose to keep quiet. However, the two of them didn't care. Seeing this, they felt a little more relaxed. After passing through many houses, Yang Han's footsteps finally stopped in front of a house. Taking a closer look, 3 large words were written on the sign in front of the prescription: Qingyang City. This is where we will be staying for the time being. Other than the 2 floors above, you can choose any of the other rooms. The top 2 floors were undoubtedly for Yang Han and the others to live in. Even the lower floors were enough for Bailey Hongzhuang and the others to live in. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the house they were going to live in. Although it was a little small, it was still not bad. They had never been picky about their environment. After choosing their rooms, Yang Lingfeng and Yang Lingfeng went downstairs and entered Bewitching's house. Chapter 6746. We've only just arrived. Aren't you going to rest for a while? Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the two with a smile. There were still 3 days until the start of the competition. If they were just going to visit the market, there was no need to rush. We didn't come here in a hurry. This transportation array will only take a moment. Why would we need to rest? Yang Lingfeng smiled brightly. Let's go to the market early. Who knows? We might be able to find some treasures before the others. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bewitching. She didn't have any intention of resting either. Since they were already here, it would be great to go out for a walk. Bewitching also saw through the woman's thoughts and smiled dotingly. If you want to go, then go. The 4 of them closed the door and walked out together. Bailey Hongzhuang thought for a moment and asked, City Lord Yang, aren't you going to take a look? My father will go find a few friends later. He probably won't be going today. Don't worry about him. Every time this formation master competition is held, he takes it very lightly. He just sees it as an opportunity to meet up with some friends. Yang Lingfeng waved his hand casually. Clearly, he wasn't worried about Yang Han's mood at all. The 4 of them had just stepped out when Fan Guangshuan and the others had already settled down and walked out. It seemed that they were also planning to go to the market. Although they didn't want to pay attention to Bewitching and Yang Lingfeng, they were still very polite when facing Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng. After bowing, they prepared to leave. Oh, aren't you from Qingyang City? Just as everyone was about to split into 2 groups and go to the market, a light and mocking voice rang out. Hearing this voice, Bailey Hongzhuang turned her head, but found that she had never seen the person who spoke. She didn't know who it was. However, when Yang Qinxue and Yang Lingfeng saw the person who spoke, their faces instantly darkened. Huangli, what do you mean by running over and saying this now? When Fan Guangshuan and the others saw Huangli, their expressions turned ugly. You broke your promise and ran away. Now you are here to provoke us. Aren't you going too far? Huangli chuckled. Why don't you take a look at your own strength? I've already given you a chance. It's just that you're incapable and can't even afford this price. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood that this person was the array formation master that was previously poached away. Huangli, it is fortunate that you have joined us. If you had joined them, you would have lowered your status. The people beside Huangli laughed. Since you've already left, Then we have nothing to do with each other. There's no need to say such useless words. Yang Qinshua's face was cold. She didn't want to say another word to this guy. I heard that you found a Xiaobai face to fill my spot. Don't make a big joke of yourself when the time comes. Huang Li's gaze quietly fell on Bewitching. Obviously, after observing for a while, he had determined who the person who would replace him was. Then you don't have to worry about it. Yang Lingfeng's face was cold. Yang Lingfeng's face was cold. You should worry about yourself. If you don't get a good result this time, you'll be letting down your bragging right now. Seeing that Yang Lingfeng didn't give him any face, Huang Li's expression turned ugly. Chapter 6747. Now that he had joined Water Praying City, the array masters here were undoubtedly much stronger than those in Clear Sun City, but their treatment was also different. In Clear Sun City, his array techniques were the strongest, so the city lord and the others had always been very polite to him. However, after coming to Water Praying City, his strength had become the lowest. Although the resources he received weren't bad, he felt very uncomfortable, without the feeling of being the moon surrounded by stars. It was because of this that he wanted to come and take a look after hearing that Clear Sun City had found someone to replace him. I'm sure young Master Yang is very clear about my strength. Otherwise, you wouldn't have paid such a price to invite me back. My eyes weren't good back then. What else can I expect from a treacherous person like you? Yang Lingfeng coldly snorted and said to Fan Guangshuan and the others. You already have nothing to do with him, so what are you still standing here for? Why waste time with a stranger? Hearing this, Fan Guangshuan and the others came back to their senses and immediately left. Although they were very dissatisfied with Bewitching's actions that didn't know the immensity of heaven and earth, they despised treacherous people like Huang Li even more. Huang Li secretly spat. Let's see what you can do when the time comes. Aren't you just talking tough? Is this person's array techniques very strong? It wasn't until they were some distance away that Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Yang Qinxua sighed. His array techniques are indeed good, better than Fan Guangshuan and Yang Lingfeng. We paid a great price to invite him back then. We were hoping that with him here, our results would be slightly better this time, but I never thought it would end up like this. He's not convinced, and came to find trouble with us. It must be because he didn't have a good time there, Yang Lingfeng said with disgust. Yang Lingfeng said in disgust. You're not doing well, so you come to us to make your presence known. How annoying. No matter how strong his array techniques are, I don't like this kind of person. In the future, even if we want to rope in array masters, we have to be careful. Otherwise, if we run into this kind of guy again, I'll be pissed to death. After finally finding a glimmer of hope, the other party left just like that. This feeling was indeed very depressing. Does the city he went to have a grudge against Qingyang City? Bewitching suddenly asked. Yang Qinxua nodded slightly. Water Prism City isn't very far from our Qingyang City. Actually, Water Prism City's strength is inferior to ours in other aspects. But we really can't compare to them when it comes to formation masters. No wonder the other party wanted to use this opportunity to belittle you. Xiao He could not help but say. If they don't seize this opportunity, they won't be able to get back at them in other ways. The two of them were originally depressed, but after hearing Xiao He's words, they felt much better. You're right. We have to give them a chance. I didn't think that my appearance would drag everyone down. Bewitching felt a little helpless. He only wanted to get a spot in the competition, but because he was representing Qingyang City, he had attracted a lot of dissatisfaction. Bewitching, this has nothing to do with you. It's Huang Li's fault. Bewitching shook his head slightly. It doesn't matter to him. I'm afraid we'll run into Shen Duanyu again in the next few days. And his lackeys, Xiaobai added. Chapter 6748. A dead pig wasn't afraid of boiling water. Looking at the two who were so open-minded, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but laugh. Very few people would use such words to describe themselves. Sure enough, there was a long distance between the market and their residence. Fortunately for cultivators, this distance would only waste a little more time and wouldn't cause them to feel tired. In the distance, there were bursts of noise coming from up ahead. The sounds of conversation and hawking mixed together, creating a lively atmosphere. The market is up ahead, Yang Lingfeng said with a sigh of relief. To be honest, I really do envy the cities that have achieved good results. Just look at these places. As soon as you step out of the door, you'll see the market. If there's any excitement, you'll be able to come out and watch as soon as possible. Unlike us, by the time we hear the news, it'll already be over. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the buildings in front of her. Not only were these buildings in excellent locations, but they were also much larger than the place they lived in. Their exteriors looked brighter and more beautiful, so there was no need to talk about the interior. There will definitely be a chance in the future. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled up slightly. Although she and Beichen didn't know the level of their array techniques, they wouldn't be too bad. Even if they could only push Qingyang City's ranking up slightly, it would still be good. After all, they had more confidence in He Xinjun and Senior Huangfu. Let's go. Let's go take a look at the market. I've prepared a lot of blood spirit stones for this trip. Yang Qinxue's face was filled with excitement. Compared to usual, she was even more lively and cute. The four of them quickened their pace towards the market. With just a glance, Bailey Hongzhuang could tell that the scale of this market was much larger than the ones they had attended before. Looking around, there were all kinds of stalls. Pills, herbs, artifacts, array stones, runes, secret skills, and all kinds of unknown treasures. It could be said that they were all gathered together in one place. Many pedestrians shuttled through the market. Although the road was very wide, it was still very crowded because of the large flow of people. This place is really lively. Xiaohe looked at the scene in front of her in amazement. This was the first time she had seen such a scale. Although they didn't have anything they wanted to buy, even walking around was very interesting. Yang Lingfeng pointed ahead and said, "Everything in this area can be sold directly. As long as you can afford it, you can buy it back." That area was bartered. Unless one took out what the stall owner wanted, they couldn't buy anything with blood spirit stones. Over there were some interesting gadgets and food. When people were tired, they would choose to rest there. In addition, there will be a place to sell contract beasts. Anyway, there are many interesting things. These 3 days are mainly for everyone to visit the market, so there's no need to rush. Following Yang Lingfeng's gaze, Di Beichen also understood the division of the venue. Are the barter items more valuable? Xiaobai asked curiously. Yang Lingfeng nodded slightly. Bartering. Usually, we want to exchange for treasures that are harder to find. However, because everyone comes from all over the world and is gathered here, there is still a high chance of success. Chapter 6749. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. I wonder if there will be illusory form pearls. That's not impossible, but illusory form pearls are relatively rare. So we can look around. If we're lucky, we might find one. Xiao He and Xiao Bai's eyes also shone brightly. Ever since they transformed into children, they had a certain level of confidence in their looks. They always thought that once they truly transformed into adults, they definitely wouldn't be disappointed. Most importantly, because they were now in the form of children, Gong Jun and the others always took the opportunity to pretend to be mature, which made them very unhappy. The group continued forward, but their speed wasn't fast. They would take a look at almost every stall. It had to be said that the quality of the items placed in the stalls here was indeed very high. Bailey Hongzhuang had seen some pills. Just from the appearance of the pills refined, she could tell that the alchemist's strength was not ordinary, and the effects of the pills were also very good. In this place, the most popular items should be treasures that can help one break through to the elementary celestial stage. Bailey Hongzhuang's rose-colored lips curled up slightly. Along the way, whenever a pill that could help a cultivator break through to the elementary celestial stage appeared, the stalls would become extremely lively. However, she also realized that the prices of these pills were extremely high, much higher than the usual prices of pills. Isn't that so? There are really too many cultivators trapped in the elementary celestial stage, and it's too far away to be able to break through, so they've used all the methods available. Although the prices of these items are artificially high, many cultivators will still buy them. After all, it's not that easy to find these outside. Yang Qinxue spread her hands and said, Ling Feng has saved up blood spirit stones for a long time for this gathering. I see. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. They hadn't been in the Brilliant Sun stage for long, so they weren't too anxious. Compared to cultivators who had been trapped in this stage for decades, or even centuries, they would indeed use all the methods available. Although they had many cultivation resources now, they were all helpful in increasing the speed of absorbing origin power. However, there were very few that could help in breaking through. This was because what they needed now was to increase the density of their elemental energy. A quantitative change would lead to a qualitative change, and their current elemental energy was clearly still too far away from a breakthrough. I'm here to buy some pills that can help me break through. I've been in this realm for quite some time. If I can break through the elementary immortal stage and enter the immortal domain, that would be awesome. Yang Lingfeng's face was full of yearning. The immortal domain, that was the place where true immortals stayed. Have you ever been to the immortal region? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. According to their judgment, the city lord should have a certain connection with the celestial region. Thus, it was possible that Yang Lingfeng and the others had also been there. We haven't been there, but we have heard some descriptions. Yang Lingfeng smiled and said, The cultivators in the immortal realm can really fly on their swords. It's very interesting. The treasures in the immortal realm are much more abundant than in the chaotic immortal realm. I also hope to have a chance to go there and explore. Flying on the sword. A trace of interest appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes when she heard this. Actually, with their current strength, it wasn't a problem for them to stand in midair. They could also use Dharma artifacts to fly. However, when it came to flying on the sword, there was still a trace of emotion, so she was very interested. Don't miss this opportunity. If you miss it, you won't be able to buy it in the future. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.